Yuri Boyka, an MMA fighter, resides in Kyiv, Ukraine. He has earned the title of undisputed, making him the finest boxer in Europe. One evening, Boyka is fighting in an illegal match held in an underground arena. As the crowd applauds, he does not allow his opponent to land a single blow on him. After a quick one-sided fight, he kicks the opponent while he's still in the air to finish him off. The scene shifts to a Russian maximum security facility. To entertain the guards and warden, the inmates engage in combat. Such matches appear to be friendly to the outside world, but with the appropriate participants, they can quickly turn violent. The most deadly prisoner of all time is a man named Kashmir. His aggressiveness requires the guards to chain his limbs and shut his mouth in order to prevent him from harming anyone outside the ring. The opponent of Kashmir is only half his size and is unable to effectively punch him. He breaks the man's neck by slamming him to the ground before punching him in the face. When his face is distorted and stained with blood, the fight finally ends. Kashmir is renowned for not having mercy and killing all of his opponents. He is more of a monster than a human being, and he feels no remorse for killing so many people. Unlike him, Boyka is a nice man outside of the ring. He hasn't had a wonderful life since he was imprisoned for several years and is a wanted criminal in Russia, but he has been able to keep his past aside and is trying to be a better person. He even assists a church in Kyiv and is usually performing charitable work. One day, a priest informs him that he might consider pursuing another career. The priest has always supported Boyka's passion. Consequently, the statement comes off as a shock to the boxer. Boyka says that his skill is a gift from God, and he is not willing to quit utilizing it. He wants to fight as a professional, and not in an unlawful arena anymore. In the afternoon, Boyka is approached by his management, who informs that he may now fight legally in actual MMA matches. The European fighting tournament happening in Budapest has allowed him to take part in the competition if he wins a qualifying match. Then comes the day of the qualification match. Since it is one of the most crucial bouts of Boyka's life, he is ready to give it all. His opponent is a Russian guy named Viktor. The competition begins, and Boyka lands the first effective kick. In the first few minutes, he exhibits his defense prowess, repelling every single attack put on him. As Viktor grows increasingly irritated, it is simpler for Boyka to make an attack. The judges on the sidelines are already impressed, so when he knocks Viktor out with a knee to his jaw, it ensures his qualifying. Everyone thinks the match is finished, but Viktor surprises everyone by standing up. Seconds later, he is pushed down a second time, but he refuses to accept defeat. By now, Boyka is agitated, so he strikes a third blow on Viktor's face, knocking him senseless. After the victory, the organizers invite Boyka to Budapest to compete in the league, which will open many doors of chances for him. The management offers Boyka a bundle of money, encouraging him to practice hard because the next match is in 2 weeks. While departing, Boyka sees that Viktor is in a terrible state. He feels awful for hurting him so much and would have never done it if he had given up after the first knockdown. Boyka remembers the priest's instructions and prays for Viktor's rapid recovery. At night, he wakes up to a nightmare of him killing his opponent in the ring. The very next morning, he goes to the manager and inquires about Viktor. To his astonishment, he is told that Viktor died yesterday night in the hospital. They had signed a pre-match pact, thus the blame lies on nobody. However, in his heart, Boyka understands that he is the cause of the death. Upon being asked about Viktor's family, the manager gives him a bag that belongs to him. Inside it, Boyka finds a note from Viktor's wife and their photograph together. In reading the letter, he can understand the anguish his wife must have gone through when she found out about his death. Right immediately, Boyka vows to apologize to her and make sure she is not having any troubles in life. Even though he is aware that his crime can never be pardoned, he refuses to abandon the road to atonement. Boyka expresses to the manager his wish to go to Russia to meet Viktor's wife, but the man is adamantly opposed to the idea. Boyka is still considered a criminal in Russia and will be sent behind bars if he is caught. He'll have to create a fake passport, which is a major risk given how close he is to being a professional MMA fighter. Boyka is certain of his choice while being aware of the consequences. The next scene introduces us to Viktor's wife, Alma, who is there at his funeral. She is all alone herself and has nowhere to turn after his husband's death. She and Viktor also owe a mafia lord by the name of Zurab. He shows up at the funeral and offers Alma as his mistress as payment for the amount she owes. Alma is disgusted by his presence, but she is careful to not make him mad. She just says she'd rather work hard and pay him in installments. Alma is a community center owner and resides there. With the money they borrowed from Zurab, she and Viktor built it. Many orphans and those in need live there. When Boyka first arrives in Russia, he tries to meet her but sees that a group of guys are taking her away in a black sedan. She turns out to be a waitress at Zurab's underground boxing club. He regards her like his own property and is extremely possessive of her. Later that day, Boyka visits the boxing club and meets Alma. He attempts to speak with her, but Zurab's guards stop him and lead him outside. Boyka respectfully asks them what time she would be leaving work since he wants to prevent a fight. The gangsters attack him in response to the question, but they later get their lesson for troubling a skilled fighter. When Boyka engages in fight, Zurab is amazed by his prowess. He wants to recruit Boyka since his club has been in need of a skilled martial artist. The man replies that he is only there to meet the girl and is not there to get into any fights. Zurab offers to talk to Alma on his behalf, refusing to let him meet her, but Boyka yet again disagrees with him and walks away. After he is out of sight, Zurab instructs his people to keep a watch on him. The next day, Boyka sneaks into the community center and meets Alma. He hands her Victor's letter and inquires about her employment at the fight club. In response, Alma states that she would prefer to work elsewhere but is constrained by the debt. She then reads the letter to him and queries if he saw their most recent fight. Boyka comes clean, revealing that he was the final adversary Victor fought against. He attempts to explain that her husband's death was an accident, but Alma refuses to listen to her husband's murderer. Boyka goes to Zurab after the conversation and offers to fight for him. He will have to forgive all of Alma's debt in exchange, though. Boyka must defeat the opponent of Zurab's choice 3 times in order to fulfill the terms of the agreement. Since the gangster is aware that the man entered Russia using a fraudulent passport, he also assures to protect him from law enforcement. The next day, Alma meets with Boyka to inform him she doesn't need his sympathy. Boyka claims that he is doing this way for his own satisfaction despite her request for him to go back home. After that, he visits a nearby gym to prepare for the fights but is bullied by a guy. When the man continues to poke him, Boyka knocks him down with a single kick. Finally, the first match day arrives. Boyka engages in a straightforward bout with a local boxer. The opponent lands a couple feeble kicks but is exposed as incompetent in front of someone as skilled as Boyka. He manages to knock him down, and just as he is about to deliver the last blow, he stops. To his relief, the opponent accepts defeat, saving him from having to inflict more damage. Alma provides him with drinks after the battle. Boyka asks her if she knows of a nice neighborhood gym because the one she is currently attending doesn't meet his standards. Alma pauses for a moment before offering him to use the gym at her community center. For the following few days, he trains there, and eventually Alma becomes used to his presence. The following match pits Boyka against 2 brothers in a 2-on-1 situation. Because he was never informed of the rules, he is astonished. Zurab stated that the fighters had to comply with the rules since it was his arena. The match begins, and Boyka fights to hold both brothers at the same time. He struggles to concentrate as the other attacks while he fights the first one. Despite this, he manages to shove one aside and knock the other down in the seconds it takes them to recover. It's a level fight until Boyka is kicked in the lower back, which is already damaged. The pain is intense until he notices Alma in the crowd and decides to fight on. He then kicks both of their asses to complete a double knockout. The crowd bursts in cheers, since no one expected him to win this fight as well. The following day, Zurab visits Alma and makes an effort to make out with her. When she rejects his advances, he accuses her of sleeping with Boyka. He further enraged her by asserting that Boyka killed her husband on purpose and that the murder wasn't an accident. Alma makes a show of not believing him, but she finds the remark offensive. Boyka's manager in Ukraine contacts him back right away because he needs to attend a press conference for the fight in Budapest. Boyka requests a postponement because he still has 1 fight left to win. When he enters his room, Alma is there to greet him. She begs him to tell her the truth about her husband's death, and Boyka begins telling her about all the difficulties he has had in his life. He admits that the first half of his life was spent in suffering, and that his only opportunity for a brighter future lay in the match with Victor. He gave it all and succeeded, but Victor's death stole a greater piece of him. He understands that accepting his help would be tough for Alma, but he begs her to let him do what he must. At night, for the final match, Boyka goes against Igor, Zurab's best fighter, who had been mocking Boyka since the day he arrived. Boyka poses a threat to Igor's status in the gang, hence he has specifically angered Igor. He repeatedly hits him as a means of venting his anger. He is successful in mounting a valiant defense, focusing on Boyka's lower back. Boyka, however, kicks him twice in midair, changing the course of the fight. Then he beats Igor black and blue, causing him to bleed a lot till he collapses. With this, he wins the entire competition and settles Alma's debt. But Zurab knew what would happen and had planned for it. He interrupts Boyka and says that he must defeat one more opponent in order for their agreement to be terminated. Boyka has just a short time before his important professional meeting in Budapest. However, he doesn't want to go without rescuing Alma. As a result, he tells the management to hold off until the next morning and prepares to face the last champion. The opponent is Kashmir, the beast that has fought and killed all of his opponents in the Russian jail. Because of his aggressive tendencies, he is taken into the arena in chains. The fight begins, but Boyka is already exhausted. He makes an effort, but given Kashmir's physique, his strikes seem to have little to no effect. The beast hits him numerous times before kicking him in the jaw. Boyka stumbles as a result of the hit and finds it difficult to get back up. Seconds before losing the fight, he gathers strength and stands up but is again slammed to the floor. When Kashmir is nearly certain that he has won, Boyka surprises him and kicks him in the back. Following that, the fight shifts to his side. He keeps the beast in an arm lock before kicking him out of the ring, shattering his right arm. He ultimately wins the fight, but Zurab is still unwilling to let go of Alma. He orders his minion to kill Boyka while attempting to flee with the girl. Boyka is at his lowest point when he notices Alma being escorted outdoors. With increased zeal and rage, he attacks the guards and slaughters them all. Finally, he manages to grab Zurab and throw him to the ground. Boyka gets shot in the process, but his anguish overpowers his agony. Zurab eventually dies after being strangled. Alma tries to help Boyka, but he stops her, asking her if he has her forgiveness. Later, the cops show up and take him into custody. Before being dragged away, he asks Alma again whether she forgives him, but she does not respond. Then Boyka is returned to a Russian jail. Alma pays him a visit a month later and informs him that he has been forgiven. Boyka, despite the fact that his attempt to become a professional fighter was unsuccessful, feels relieved for the first time in months. In the final shot, we see him fighting in the Pris0n's arena, retaining his championship as the undisputed.